The phone screamed at 11:47 p.m. David Morrison stared at the unknown number glowing on his screen. He sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle's glittering skyline. Three Japanese investors waited across the mahogany table. Contracts worth $80 million lay between them, awaiting his signature. His finger hovered over the decline button. Something stopped him. Some primal instinct whispered that this call mattered more than money, more than deals, more than empire building. He pressed accept and lifted the phone to his ear. At first he heard only breathing, shallow, terrified, the breathing of a child trying not to cry. Then came her voice, a whisper so quiet he almost missed it. "Daddy." His heart stopped. "Daddy, help me. Claire says if I tell you, she'll—" The line went dead. David's hands shook. The phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the table. The Japanese investors leaned forward, concern creasing their faces. But David couldn't hear their questions. Blood roared in his ears. His daughter's voice echoed in his mind, terrified and small. Emma, his 8-year-old daughter, home alone with his wife, or so he thought. David stood so fast his chair toppled backward. He grabbed his coat and ran for the elevator, leaving confused investors and unsigned contracts behind. His assistant called after him, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. 23 minutes. That's how long it took to drive from downtown Seattle to his house in Bellevue. David made it in 16, running 3 red lights and pushing his BMW to speeds that would have earned a reckless driving charge. Please, he prayed to a God he hadn't spoken to since his wife Sarah died. Please let Emma be okay. Please let this be nothing. Please let me be wrong. But he wasn't wrong. He knew it the moment he turned onto a street and saw the garage door standing open. Claire always closed the garage door. She obsessed over security, over appearances, over maintaining their perfect life in their perfect house, in their perfect neighborhood. An open garage door meant something had gone very, very wrong. David slammed the brakes. The car screeched to a stop in the driveway. He threw open the door and ran. That's when he heard the scream. High-pitched, agonized, the sound of a child in pain. Amma's scream. David's expensive Italian shoes slapped against concrete as he sprinted into the garage. What he saw would replay in his nightmares for the rest of his life. An aluminum ladder lay on its side, one leg bent at an unnatural angle. Tools scattered across the floor. A cardboard box torn open, its contents spilled. And Emma, his baby girl, lying on the cold garage floor, her right leg twisted wrong. So wrong, the bone pressed against her skin at an angle that made his stomach turn. Her face had gone white as paper. Tears and snot streamed down her cheeks. She clutched her leg with both hands, trying not to move it, trying not to scream again. But the worst part, the part that would haunt him forever, wasn't the broken leg. It was her eyes. Emma looked up at him with such pure terror that it stopped him cold. Not terror of the pain, not terror of the injury, the terror of the woman standing 6 feet away. Claire stood near the workbench, one hand pressed to her mouth in a perfect impression of shock and horror. Her other hand held her phone. No, not her phone. David's eyes focused. That watch, the smartwatch he'd given Emma months ago, Sarah's watch, the one with the emergency recording feature. Why was Claire wearing Emma's watch? David, thank God you're here. Claire rushed toward him, her voice breaking in all the right places. It happened so fast. I told her not to climb the ladder. I told her it was too high. But she wouldn't listen. She's so stubborn sometimes. She climbed up anyway and... David dropped to his knees beside Emma. His hands hovered over her leg, afraid to touch, afraid to cause more pain. He pulled out his phone with shaking fingers and dialed 911. Daddy, Emma's voice came out as a whimper. My leg hurts so bad. I know, baby, I know. Don't move. The ambulance is coming. Daddy. Emma grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength. Her eyes locked onto his. He saw something there beyond pain. Something urgent. Something desperate. She mouthed the words silently, her gaze flicking toward Claire and back again. She pushed it. David froze, his mind rejected what he'd just seen. No, impossible. Claire loved Emma. Claire had dedicated 2 years to being a good stepmother. Claire wouldn't. But Emma's eyes told a different story. The 911 operator answered. David gave the address, explained the injury, requested immediate dispatch. His voice operated on autopilot while his mind raced. "What was she trying to get?" he asked, looking up at Claire. Claire gestured vaguely at the shelves lining the garage wall. "Some old toy she wanted. I told her no. I told her to wait for you to get home. But she climbed up when my back was turned. You know how children are." "Emma." David turned back to his daughter. He kept his voice gentle, controlled. "What were you trying to get, sweetheart?" Emma's eyes darted to Claire. Fear flashed across her face. Real, visceral fear. Then she looked back at her father and whispered, "A box. Claire said I had to get it down or I wouldn't get dinner." "That's not true, Professor." Claire's voice turned sharp. "She's confused. The pain is making her say things that don't make sense. You know how dramatic she can be." David studied his wife's face, really looked at it for perhaps the first time in months. He'd been so busy with the company, with travel, with building his pharmaceutical empire. When had he last really seen Claire? When had he last paid attention? The mask was perfect, concern etched into every line, tears gathering in her eyes, hands wringing together. But underneath, something flickered, something cold and calculating. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. David removed his suit jacket and gently laid it over Emma's shivering body. He stroked her hair, careful not to move her. "I'm here now," he whispered. "Daddy's here." Emma's next words came so quietly he almost missed them. "She smiled, Daddy. When I fell, she smiled." Paramedics swarmed into the garage with professional efficiency. They stabilized Emma's leg, gave her something for the pain, loaded her onto a stretcher with careful hands. David climbed into the ambulance with her. Through the rear window, he watched Claire standing in the driveway. She held the watch in her hand, turning it over, examining it. David's blood ran cold. That watch had belonged to Sarah. His late wife had given it to him 2 weeks before cancer took her, when she could barely speak above a whisper. "Keep this," Sarah had said, pressing the watch into his palm. "It records video when it detects stress. I used to wear it during chemo appointments. Keep it for the girls. Just in case." Just in case of what? David had thought she was being paranoid, overly cautious. But he'd honored her wishes. 6 months ago, he'd given the watch to Emma, showing her the panic button hidden in the side. "If you're ever scared, press this. It will record everything and send me an alert." Emma had never pressed it, or had she? David's mind raced. If Emma had been wearing the watch when she fell, if the fall had triggered the stress sensor, if the watch had been recording. "Sir?" The paramedic touched his arm. "Your daughter is asking for you." Emma's eyes had gone glassy from the medication, but she tracked his face when he leaned close. "The watch," she slurred. "I pressed the button lots of times. She doesn't know." David's heart hammered against his ribs. "Where's the watch now, baby?" "She took it. After. Said she found it on the floor." The ambulance pulled up to Seattle Children's Hospital emergency entrance. Doors flew open. Medical staff rushed to meet them. Emma was whisked away on the gurney, down a hallway lined with cheerful murals of cartoon animals. David stood frozen in the ambulance bay, cell phone in hand. Claire had the watch. Claire had the evidence. Whatever was on that device, she would destroy it. He had to act fast. He dialed a number he hadn't called in 15 years. "Marcus Webb, attorney at law." "Marcus, it's David Morrison. I need you at Seattle Children's Hospital right now. It's an emergency." "And Marcus?" David's voice hardened. "Bring the police." Derlisa Chen had kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She'd been examining Emma for 20 minutes when she finally emerged from the trauma room and gestured for David to follow her to a consultation area. "Your daughter is stable," Dr. Chen began. "The fracture is serious but clean. We'll need surgery to set it properly. 6 weeks in a cast. Physical therapy after that. She'll heal." Relief flooded through David. "Thank God." "Mr. Morrison." Dr. Chen's expression changed. "There's something else." She pulled up x-rays on a computer screen. Emma's leg bones glowed white against the black background. Dr. Chen pointed to faint lines crisscrossing the bone. "These are healed fractures, old injuries. See here, and here. Your daughter has 7 previously broken bones that we can see on these scans." The world tilted. 7? David's voice came out strangled. That's impossible. Emma has never broken anything before tonight. Mr. Morrison. Dr. Chen turned to face him fully. Left wrist, approximately 6 months ago. 2 ribs, 9 months. Right forearm, 13 months. Left ankle, 14 months. Collarbone, 5 months. 2 fingers that healed incorrectly. And now this tibia fracture. The room spun. David gripped the edge of the desk to steady it himself. How? He couldn't finish the sentence. When was the last time you bathed your daughter? Helped her dress? Really looked at her body? The question hit like a physical blow. David thought back. Weeks, months. He'd been in Tokyo for 3 weeks this time. Before that, London. Before that, Singapore. Claire handled everything at home. Bath time, bedtime, school mornings, doctor appointments. He'd told himself he was providing for his family, building a future, creating security. But he'd been absent, worse than absent, blind. These injuries, Dr. Chen continued, her voice gentle but firm. The pattern is consistent with systematic physical abuse. Someone has been hurting your daughter repeatedly over the past year and a half. No, the word came out automatically. Claire wouldn't. She loves Emma. Even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Emma's terrified eyes, her whispered words. She pushed it. She smiled. How many other times? How many broken bones? How much suffering had Emma endured while he jetted around the world, oblivious? I'm required by law to report this to Child Protective Services, Dr. Chen said. They'll open an investigation. But Mr. Morrison, you should know something else. There's a custody hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning. Did you know about that? David's head snapped up. What custody hearing? Your wife filed for emergency custody 2 weeks ago. According to the paperwork, she claims you've been abusive and absent. The hearing is set for 9 a.m. tomorrow. That's... Dr. Chen glanced at the clock. 72 hours from now. The final piece clicked into place. This wasn't an accident. This was a setup. Claire had planned this. Pushed Emma off the ladder deliberately. Created evidence of an injury while David was supposedly in Tokyo for 3 more days. She would rush to court with photos of Emma's broken leg, claiming David's abuse, claiming his negligence. And she would win. She would get custody of both girls. She would get control of their $50 million trust funds. She would get everything. And then what? What happened to inconvenient stepdaughters once the money was secured? David thought of Emma's terrified eyes, of 7 broken bones, of 18 months of suffering. He knew exactly what would happen. Where's my younger daughter? The question came out sharp. Grace, she's 18 months old. Where is she? Dr. Chen's expression turned grave. Mr. Morrison, I don't know. But if someone has been abusing Emma... David was already running. He found Marcus Webb in the hospital waiting room at 2:15 a.m. The lawyer looked exactly as David remembered, except his silver hair had receded further, and deep lines bracketed his mouth. 15 years of practicing family law had left their mark. David. Marcus stood, gripping his hand. What's happened? David told him everything. The phone call, the garage, the ladder, the watch, the x-rays, the custody hearing in 72 hours. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. We need to see that watch footage, Marcus said when David finished. If it shows what you think it shows, we have our evidence. But David, you need to understand something. Even with video proof, Claire will fight. She'll claim it's edited. She'll paint you as an absent father who failed to protect his children. And juries... He paused. Juries are often sympathetic to stepmothers. Then what do? We build an airtight case in 72 hours. We find every piece of evidence, every witness, every pattern. We prove Claire's been planning this, and we make damn sure those children are never in her custody again. A woman appeared in the doorway, Latina, mid-40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. She wore jeans and a leather jacket despite the late hour. Elena Rodriguez. She extended her hand to David. Marcus called me. I'm a private investigator, former FBI. I specialize in domestic abuse cases and fraud. Can you help us? David asked. That depends. How much time do we have? 72 hours. Elena whistled low. That's tight, but I've worked with less. First things first. We need that watch. Where is it? Claire has it. Then we get a warrant. A new voice joined them. Detective James Walsh, Seattle PD, stepped into the waiting room. He had the weathered face of a cop who'd seen too much. Marcus filled me in. If that watch has evidence of child abuse, we can seize it immediately. But we need probable cause. We have 7 broken bones on X-ray, Dr. Chen said, appearing behind Walsh. We have a child's testimony, and we have an attempted custody filing that reeks of manipulation. Is that enough probable cause, Detective? Walsh pulled out his radio. More than enough. Give me Claire's address. While Walsh coordinated with his team, Elena pulled out a laptop and started typing. Her fingers flew across the keys. Claire Bennett, she muttered. Let's see who you really are. David watched her work, adrenaline and exhaustion warring in his system. It was 3 a.m. He'd been awake for 22 hours, but sleep was impossible. Not while Emma lay in a hospital bed. Not while Grace's location remained unknown. Not while Claire walked free. Marcus touched his arm. David, there's something I need to tell you. Something Claire mentioned in her custody filing. What? She claims to have evidence of your abuse. Photos, medical records, witness statements. She's been building a case against you for months. The words landed like punches. That's impossible. I've never laid a hand on Emma. I believe you, but Claire's smart. She's documented every absence, every missed school event, every time you chose work over family. She's twisted it into a narrative of neglect bordering on abuse. David thought of all those business trips, all those late nights, all those times he'd promised Emma he'd be home for dinner and then canceled at the last minute. He'd given Claire exactly the ammunition she needed. We'll fight it, Marcus continued, but you need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. Elena's computer beeped. She leaned forward, studying the screen. Her expression shifted from focused to horrified. Oh my God! Everyone turned toward her. What is it? David demanded. Claire Bennett doesn't exist. Elena spun the laptop around. The social security number on her driver's license? It belonged to a woman who died in 2015. Her college degree from UCLA? Forged. That nonprofit she claimed to work for? Shut down 3 years ago. The room fell silent. So who is she? Walsh asked. Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard again. Running facial recognition through my FBI databases now. If she's got a record, we'll find her real identity. The laptop beeped again. Elena's eyes widened. Her real name is Claire Hartley. And gentlemen, we have a very big problem. She turned the screen around. David stared at a mugshot dated 2008. Claire looked younger, harder around the edges, but unmistakably his wife. Below the photo, a rap sheet scrolled down the screen. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. All charges dropped as part of a plea deal. But it was the case summary that made David's blood freeze. Claire Hartley married Robert Thornton in San Francisco in 2008. Elena read aloud. Tech CEO, recently widowed, 7-year-old son from previous marriage. They divorced in 2010 after allegations of child abuse. No charges filed. Thornton paid Claire $2.5 million to go away. Signed a non-disclosure agreement. She scrolled down. Second marriage, James Mitchell, Boston real estate mogul, 2013. 2 daughters from previous marriage, ages 9 and 11. Divorced 2016 after the older daughter was hospitalized with suspicious injuries. No charges filed. Mitchell paid Claire $4.1 million in settlement. Also signed an NDA. Marcus leaned over the screen. She's done this before. Twice. At least twice, Elena corrected. Those are just the cases I found in 10 minutes. There could be more. Walsh pulled out his phone. I'm calling Boston PD and San Francisco PD. If there are other victims, we need to talk to them. David couldn't speak. His mind reeled. 2 other families, 2 other fathers who'd failed to protect their children, 2 other children who'd suffered while adults looked away. There's more, Elena said quietly. She pulled up another file. Chicago, 2006. Claire was engaged to a pharmaceutical executive named Thomas Wayne. He had a 6-year-old daughter from his first marriage. 3 months into the engagement, the daughter fell down the stairs and died, ruled accidental. The room went cold. Thomas Wayne killed himself 6 months later, Elena continued. left a note saying he couldn't live with the guilt of not protecting his daughter. The case was closed. No investigation into Claire. David's stomach turned. She killed that little girl. We can't prove it, Marcus warned. Not yet, but the pattern is clear. Claire targets wealthy widowers with young children. She marries them. She abuses the children. She builds a case of false evidence against the father. She files for divorce or custody. She walks away with millions. And the children? David's voice came out hoarse. No one answered. They didn't need to. Emma had 7 broken bones because Claire had been perfecting her technique, learning how much pain a child could endure, testing boundaries, building documentation. The custody hearing wasn't the endgame. It was just the next step. David thought about Claire's words on that recorded call Emma mentioned. The plan she'd discussed with someone named Jessica. Plan B. We need to find Grace, he said, right now. Walsh was already moving toward the door. I've got units heading to your house. If your younger daughter is there, we'll bring her in. David's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Morrison? A woman's voice, cold and professional. This is Jessica Hartley, Claire's sister. I work in IT at Seattle Children's Hospital. I just wanted you to know that I've been watching the security feeds. Your younger daughter was brought in 20 minutes ago by police. She's in the pediatric unit right now, 3rd floor. The line went dead. David stared at his phone. Jessica Hartley, another sister, working at this hospital, with access to security systems and patient records. This conspiracy went deeper than he'd imagined. 3rd floor, he said. Grace is here. They ran. Grace's room was marked with cheerful stickers of butterflies and flowers, a stark contrast to the scene inside. The baby lay in a hospital crib, her tiny body connected to an IV. A pediatric nurse stood nearby, making notes on a chart. Dr. Chen met them at the door. Mr. Morrison, your daughter is severely malnourished and dehydrated. She's also exhibiting signs of chronic neglect. David approached the crib on shaking legs. Grace looked so small. Her blonde hair, usually curly and bouncing, lay limp against her head. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her ribs showed through her hospital gown. When had he last really looked at his baby daughter? When had he last held her? Grace's eyes opened. For a moment, she stared at David without recognition. Then something flickered. Memory, perhaps, or hope. Dada? The word came out cracked and uncertain. David reached into the crib and lifted her carefully, mindful of the IV line. Grace was too light. At 18 months, she should have been sturdier, heavier. Instead, she felt fragile as glass. She buried her face in his shoulder and began to cry. Not the angry wails of a frustrated toddler. The hopeless, exhausted sobs of a child who'd given up on being comforted. I've got you, David whispered. Daddy's got you now. Dr. Chen pulled him aside while the nurse checked Grace's vitals. Mr. Morrison, your daughter's weight is in the 5th percentile for her age. She should be in the 25th at minimum. She has an infected diaper rash suggesting days of unchanged diapers. Her developmental milestones are delayed. An 18-month-old should be walking, babbling, responding to names. Grace does none of those things. What does that mean? David asked, though he already knew. It means she's been neglected since birth, possibly never properly fed, definitely not given adequate attention or stimulation. Mr. Morrison, where were you while this was happening? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Where was he? Tokyo, London, Singapore, Berlin, Dubai, chasing deals and building empires while his daughters starved for food and attention. I was working, he said finally. The words tasted like ash. I thought Claire was taking care of them. She wasn't. Dr. Chen's voice held no judgment, just facts. And now both your daughters are in this hospital because of it. Elena appeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. David, we found her, Jessica Hartley. She's here in the hospital right now. Works as a systems administrator in IT under the name Jennifer Brooks. She's been employed here for 6 months. Walsh stepped forward, which means she has access to all hospital records, security footage, medication logs. She's been watching Emma this whole time. She probably knows we're here right now. We need to find her, Marcus said, before she destroys evidence or warns Claire. But David couldn't move. Grace clung to him with desperate strength, her tiny fingers twisted in his shirt. Emma lay sedated in a room down the hall, both his daughters broken and terrified because he'd failed them. A father protects. Always. Sarah had told him that before she died. Her last words to him, whispered through cancer-ravaged lips. A father protects his children. Always. No matter what. No exceptions. He'd broken that promise, but he would keep it from now on. "Elena, find Jessica," David said. His voice came out harder than before, steadier. "Walsh, get a warrant for Claire's arrest. Marcus, prepare the custody paperwork. I want full permanent custody of both girls filed before that hearing tomorrow." "David," Marcus said carefully, "even with all this evidence, Claire still has her own evidence against you. Her lawyer is good. This is going to be a fight." "Then we fight." David looked down at Grace in his arms, then toward the room where Emma slept. "I've spent 2 years building a pharmaceutical company. I know how to fight, and I know how to win." "What about the hearing?" Walsh asked. "It's in 68 hours now." David checked his watch. 3:47 a.m. The night was bleeding into early morning. In 68 hours, he'd stand before a judge and fight for the right to keep his daughters. He'd been a fool, an absent father, a blind husband, but that ended tonight. "We have 68 hours to build a case that leaves no doubt," David said. "No stone unturned, no witness unfound. We prove Claire's pattern. We prove her conspiracy. We prove she's dangerous. And we make damn sure she never gets near my daughters again." He looked at each person in turn. Marcus, Elena, Walsh, Dr. Chen, people who dropped everything in the middle of the night to help him. "A father protects," David said, "always, and I'm done failing at that job." Emma appeared in the doorway, pushed in a wheelchair by a nurse. The sedation had worn off enough for her to move. Her right leg sat encased in a temporary splint. Her eyes were red from crying. But when she saw David holding Grace, something changed in her expression. Hope flickered there. Fragile, uncertain, but real. "Is Grace okay?" Emma asked. "She will be," David promised. "You both will be, I swear it." Emma studied his face for a long moment, weighing his words, deciding whether to trust him again. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, Daddy, I believe you." 3 words, so simple, so devastating. "I believe you." David had to earn those words, had to prove he deserved them, starting now. "Elena," he said, "find Jessica Hartley. I want to know everything about her. Everything about this conspiracy, every person involved, every crime committed. We're going to tear this apart piece by piece." Elena smiled grimly. "Give me 48 hours. "You have 30. She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Instead, she opened her laptop and started typing. Walsh headed for the door. "I'm going to personally oversee Claire's arrest. With the evidence we have, she's not making bail." "Wait," David stopped him. "Where is Claire right now?" Walsh checked his phone. "Patrol units report she's still at your house. Packing, it looks like. Probably planning to run. Then catch her before she does." As Walsh left, Marcus pulled David aside. "You understand what's about to happen, right? This is going to be a media circus. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built will be examined and questioned. Are you ready for that?" David looked at his daughters, Emma in her wheelchair, trying so hard to be brave, Grace in his arms, finally falling asleep with the exhaustion of a child who'd been running on empty for too long. "I built a company," he said quietly, "but I almost lost my children. I know which one matters." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let's get to work. We have 67 hours and 32 minutes to save your family." David sat down in the hospital chair, Grace asleep on his chest, Emma's wheelchair pulled close beside him. Outside the window, Seattle's dawn crept across the sky. Somewhere in the city, Claire packed her bags, thinking she'd won. Somewhere in the hospital, Jessica monitored security feeds, thinking she was invisible. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated what a father would do to protect his children. David Morrison had built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing. He'd negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions. He'd faced down corporate sharks and government regulators. But none of that compared to the fight ahead. In 67 hours, he'd stand before a judge, and he would win, because a father protects, always. At 2:17 a.m. on Friday morning, hospital alarms shattered the silence. David jerked awake in the chair beside Emma's bed. Grace still slept on his chest, her tiny fingers clutching his shirt. Emma sat up fast, eyes wide with terror. "What's happening?" she whispered. Red lights flashed in the hallway. A mechanical voice announced code yellow, pediatric wing, security breach. Nurses rushed past the doorway. Somewhere down the corridor, a woman screamed. Detective Walsh burst into the room, hand on his holstered weapon. "Stay here. Lock the door after me. Don't open it for anyone except hospital security or me." "What's going on?" David stood carefully, Grace still clutched against him. "Someone cut through the security doors on the west stairwell, disabled the cameras. They're in the building." Walsh didn't need to say who. They all knew. Claire. David's blood turned to ice. "Grace and Emma, we need to move them somewhere secure." "No time. This room is as safe as anywhere. I've got officers on every floor. We'll find her." Walsh left. The lock clicked behind him. Emma stared at the door, her face pale. "She's coming for us. She said she would." "When did she say that?" "Lots of times. She said if I ever told anyone, she'd make sure we both disappeared. She said no one would believe me anyway because Daddy was never home and she was perfect." The words cut deep. Emma was right. Claire had been perfect. The devoted stepmother, the patient caregiver, the woman who'd given up her career to raise someone else's children. David had believed every lie. Grace woke up and began to fuss. David bounced her gently, his eyes locked on the door. Outside, footsteps pounded past. Radios crackled. Orders were shouted. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then his phone buzzed. Text from Walsh, found her in the pharmacy. "Breaking into controlled substances. Arrested, you're safe." David exhaled. His hand shook so badly he nearly dropped the phone. But Emma, "She's gone," he told Emma. "The police caught her. She can't hurt you now." Emma didn't look convinced. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure, Twen." But even as he said it, doubt crept in. Claire had slipped past hospital security, disabled cameras, nearly reached the pediatric wing. She was desperate, and desperate people did unpredictable things. 20 minutes later, Walsh returned. His expression was grim. "We caught her breaking into the pharmacy's locked cabinet. She had sedatives, enough to knock out an adult male for hours. We think she was planning to drug someone at the courthouse tomorrow. Make them appear unstable during the hearing." "Me," David said flatly. "That's our theory. Coffee, water, anything you might drink. One dose and you'd be slurring words, unable to focus. Her lawyer would claim you're intoxicated. Unfit parent." The calculation was brilliant. Evil, but brilliant. "What happens now?" David asked. "She's in custody, but here's the problem. Her lawyer posted bail 3 hours ago. $500,000. We arrested her again for violating the restraining order and attempted poisoning, but a judge has to approve holding her without bail. That hearing isn't until 8 a.m., 1 hour before your custody hearing." David's jaw tightened. "So she could be released?" "It's possible. That's why I'm stationing officers outside this room until the custody hearing is over. No one gets near these children except authorized medical staff." Emma grabbed David's hand. Her fingers felt small and cold. "Daddy, what if she gets out? What if she finds us?" David knelt beside her wheelchair so their eyes were level. "Emma, listen to me. A father protects. Always. That means I will do whatever it takes to keep you and Grace safe. If I have to hire security guards, if I have to move to another state, if I have to spend every dollar I have, I will protect you. Do you understand?" Emma studied his face, searching for truth, searching for certainty. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I believe you." Those words again. I believe you. David had to keep earning them. Friday morning arrived with cruel sunshine, the kind of bright, clear day that belonged to picnics and parks, not custody battles and criminal accusations. David dressed in the hospital bathroom. Navy suit, white shirt, red tie, armor for the war ahead. Marcus had brought the clothes at 6 a.m., along with copies of every document they'd compiled through the sleepless night. Elena's investigation had yielded gold. Bank records showing Claire's offshore accounts, emails between Claire and Jessica discussing the plan, search history from Claire's laptop revealing phrases like drugs that mimic heart attacks, and BOA, how long do child abuse investigations take? But most damning was the smartwatch footage. Police had seized the watch from Claire's purse when they arrested her. The memory card held 18 months of recordings. Emma had pressed the panic button 47 times. Each activation saved 10 minutes of video before and after. 47 times, 47 instances of abuse so severe an 8-year-old had pressed an emergency button. David had watched 5 minutes of the footage before he'd had to stop. He'd vomited in the hospital bathroom, then sat on the floor with his head between his knees, trying not to scream. Marcus had watched it all. Every clip. 6 hours of material condensed into a 30-minute compilation that would be shown in court. "It's the worst thing I've ever seen," Marcus had said quietly, "and I've been a family lawyer for 25 years. David, I need to warn you. When that judge sees this, when Emma testifies, it's going to get very emotional. You need to stay calm, no outbursts. No matter what Claire's lawyer says." Now they sat in Marcus's car outside King County Courthouse. 9 a.m. approached. The hearing would begin in 20 minutes. Emma sat in the back seat, her casted legs stretched across the seat. She wore a blue dress that Sarah had bought her 2 years ago. It was slightly too small now, but Emma had insisted. "Mommy picked this one. It'll help me be brave." Grace sat in her car seat, gnawing on a teething ring. She didn't understand where they were going or why. That was a mercy. "Ready?" Marcus asked. David looked at his daughters in the rearview mirror. "Ready." They entered through a side door to avoid the media circus gathering at the front steps. Somehow the story had leaked. News vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions as David's car passed. "Mr. Morrison, is it true your wife abused your children?" "David, where have you been for the past 2 years?" "Is the video real or edited?" David ignored them all. He carried Grace while a nurse pushed Emma's wheelchair. Marcus led them through security and up to the third-floor family court. Judge Catherine Morrison presided. No relation to David, just an unfortunate coincidence. She was 58 years old with steel gray hair and a reputation for harsh sentences in child abuse cases. Claire sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. Her arraignment for the hospital break-in had happened at 8 a.m. The judge had denied bail. She would remain in custody until trial. But she still had the custody hearing, still had her lawyer, still had her manufactured evidence. Derek Wilson, her attorney, was everything David expected. Expensive suit, perfect hair, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He specialized in defending difficult clients, the kind of lawyer who could make a villain look like a victim. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "Family court is now in session." The Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison took her seat and reviewed the files before her. The courtroom held only essential people. No gallery, no audience, just David, Marcus, Claire, Derek, a court reporter, and a child advocate assigned to represent Emma and Grace's interests. "We're here for an emergency custody hearing," Judge Morrison began. "Claire Hartley has petitioned for full custody of Emma and Grace Morrison, alleging abuse and neglect by their father, David Morrison. Mr. Morrison has counterfiled for permanent sole custody, alleging systematic abuse by Ms. Hartley. This is highly unusual. Both parties are making serious accusations." She looked over her reading glasses at them both. "I've reviewed the preliminary evidence from both sides. I've read the police reports from last night's incident. I've seen medical records, and I'm going to tell you both something right now. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your reputations. I care about those 2 children. And whoever is lying to me today will face consequences beyond losing custody. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, Your Honor," David and Derek said in unison. "Good. Mr. Wilson, your client filed first. Present your case." Derek stood. He moved like a performer taking the stage. Confident. Practiced. "Your Honor, Claire Hartley is a dedicated stepmother who has spent 2 years trying to hold together a family abandoned by its father. David Morrison travels 250 days per year. He misses school events, birthdays, parent-teacher conferences. He has provided financial support but zero emotional presence. Derek pulled out photographs. David sick to his stomach as he recognized them. Emma with bruises on her arms, Emma with a bandage on her forehead, Emma looking thin and exhausted. These injuries occurred while Emma was in her father's care, Derek continued. Ms. Hartley documented them, reported them to the school, tried to get help, but Mr. Morrison's wealth and influence kept investigations from moving forward. Ms. Hartley finally had no choice but to file for emergency custody to protect these children from further harm. It was masterful, every word technically true, every word twisted into a lie. David had been home when some of those injuries occurred, but he'd been in his study on conference calls, buried in work. He hadn't seen the bruises, hadn't asked questions, had believed Claire's explanations about playground accidents and childhood clumsiness. Your Honor, Derek continued, my client loves these children. She gave up her career to care for them. She has been their primary caregiver for 2 years. And now, because she dared to speak up about Mr. Morrison's neglect, she's being vilified. Last night's incident at the hospital was a misunderstanding. Ms. Hartley was concerned about Emma's welfare. She went to check on her daughter and was violently arrested. Judge Morrison's expression remained neutral. Mr. Webb, your response. Marcus stood. Where Derek had been theatrical, Marcus was surgical, precise, methodical. Your Honor, I'm going to show you a video. It's 30 minutes long. I apologize for the length, but every second is necessary. This video was recorded by a smartwatch belonging to Emma Morrison. The watch has a panic button feature. When pressed, it records 10 minutes of video before and after the button press. Emma pressed that button 47 times over 18 months. What you're about to see is a compilation of those recordings. He set up a laptop. The screen faced Judge Morrison, but was angled so David couldn't see. He was grateful for that. He couldn't watch it again. The courtroom fell silent except for the video audio. David watched Judge Morrison's face instead. Watched her expression shift from neutral to concerned to horrified. 5 minutes in, she pressed a hand to her mouth. 10 minutes in, she closed her eyes briefly, collecting herself. 20 minutes in, she stopped the video. I've seen enough. Her voice came out hoarse. Mr. Wilson, I assume you are going to claim this video is edited? Derek had gone pale. Your Honor, we would need to have it examined by experts to verify its authenticity. The FBI already did that, Marcus said. No. Last night, Elena Rodriguez, former FBI agent and now private investigator, used federal resources to verify every frame. The video is authentic, unedited, and it shows Claire Hartley engaging in systematic torture of an 8-year-old child over 18 months. Judge Morrison turned to Claire. For the first time, David saw real emotion on the judge's face. Disgust, fury. Mrs. Hartley, you pushed that child off a ladder deliberately. Claire opened her mouth. Derek put a hand on her arm, but she shook him off. That little brat ruined everything, Claire hissed. The mask finally dropped. She was supposed to be easy, supposed to be grateful, but she kept crying, kept asking for him. She pointed at David, kept talking about her dead mother. I tried to teach her discipline, respect, but she was too weak. Derek grabbed Claire's arm. Stop talking. Claire, stop. But Claire was beyond reason. 2 years of playing perfect stepmother had finally broken something inside her. I should have pushed her harder, should have made sure she didn't survive. Then I could have blamed him. Grieving father, too distraught over losing another family member. No one would have questioned it when I took custody of the baby and the money. The courtroom froze. Your Honor, Derek said desperately, my client is clearly distraught and not thinking clearly. Your client just confessed to attempted murder in my courtroom. Judge Morrison's voice could have cut steel. Bailiff, take Ms. Hartley into custody. I'm remanding her to jail pending criminal charges. Bailiffs moved forward. Claire struggled as they cuffed her hands. This isn't over, she screamed at David. You think you've won? She'll never be whole. Every night when she closes her eyes, she'll see my face. I'll haunt her forever. David stood. His voice came out calm, deadly calm. You're wrong. Emma is already healing, and in 10 years she won't even remember your face. But you'll die in prison, alone, forgotten. And Emma will be happy, loved, and thriving. That's the real victory. Claire was dragged from the courtroom, still screaming. Judge Morrison waited until the doors closed. Then she turned to David. Mr. Morrison, I'm granting you full permanent custody of both children effective immediately. Ms. Hartley is prohibited from any contact whatsoever. I'm also recommending that the district attorney file charges of attempted murder, child abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and whatever else applies. This is one of the worst cases I've seen in 24 years on the bench. She looked at Emma, who sat quietly in her wheelchair near the back of the courtroom. Emma, you were very brave today. Your mother would be proud of you. Emma's voice came out small but steady. Thank you, Judge Morrison. One more thing, the judge added. For Morrison, you have custody, but I'm ordering regular visits from Child Protective Services for the next 6 months. You will also attend family therapy with both children. I don't doubt you love your daughters, but love isn't enough. They need you present, really present, every day. Can you do that? Yes, Your Honor. David didn't hesitate. I've already resigned from my position as CEO. I work from home now. My daughters are my priority, my only priority. Judge Morrison studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Good. Court is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, David found an unexpected gathering. 2 men waited in the hallway, one in his early 50s with silver at his temples. The other older, maybe 60, with tired eyes that had seen too much pain. Mr. Morrison? The younger man extended his hand. I'm Robert Thornton. This is James Mitchell. The names clicked. Claire's previous victims. You came, David said. We flew in last night when we heard what happened. Robert's voice carried weight, regret. I should have prosecuted Claire 10 years ago. I paid her to go away instead. I told myself I was protecting my son's privacy, but really I was protecting myself from embarrassment. My daughters too, James added. Emily was 9 when Claire broke her arm. Madison was 11 when Claire started burning her with curling irons. I knew something was wrong, but Claire was so good at explaining things away, so good at making me doubt what I saw. A young man appeared behind Robert, tall, athletic, maybe 17 or 18. Dad, they're ready for us. David Morrison, this is my son Brandon. Robert put a hand on the young man's shoulder. He's 17 now. He's going to testify about what Claire did to him, even though it means breaking the NDA, even though we'll lose millions in penalties. Brandon met David's eyes. Mr. Thornton said you have a daughter Emma's age. Is she okay? She will be. Good. Brandon's jaw tightened. I was 8 when Claire hurt me, just like Emma. I didn't tell anyone for 2 years. By then the damage was done. If testifying helps make sure she never hurts another kid, the money doesn't matter. 2 young women joined James Mitchell, both in their 20s, both carrying the invisible scars of trauma survivors. These are my daughters, James said. Emily and Madison. They wanted to be here, to show Emma she's not alone. Emily, the older one, spoke first. Is Emma here? Can we meet her? David hesitated. Emma had been through so much. More strangers, more questions, more reliving the trauma. But Emily seemed to understand his hesitation. We don't have to talk about Claire. We just want her to know that we survived, that she will too, that it gets better. David found Emma in a consultation room with the victim advocate. When he explained who wanted to meet her, Emma's eyes widened. Other kids? Claire hurt other kids? Yes, and they want you to know you're not alone. Emma bit her lip, then nodded. Okay, I want to meet them. The meeting was brief but powerful. Brandon knelt beside Emma's wheelchair and told her she was braver than he'd been. Emily and Madison shared that they'd gone to therapy, that healing was possible, that the nightmares eventually faded. Does it ever stop hurting? Emma asked. The physical pain stops, Emily said gently. The emotional pain becomes manageable. You learn to live with it, to grow around it, and eventually you're stronger than you were before. Emma touched the watch on her wrist, Sarah's watch, the one that had saved her life. My mom told me to be brave. I'm trying. You already are, Madison said. You pressed that button. You told the truth. You stopped her. That takes more courage than most adults have. When they left, Emma looked up at David with something new in her eyes. Not hope exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. Daddy, they're all okay. They grew up and they're okay. You will be too, David promised. I swear it. The criminal trial moved faster than anyone expected. Claire's confession in family court had sealed her fate. The district attorney filed charges within 24 hours. Attempted murder, child abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder. But the most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source, Jessica Hartley. Claire's sister sat in the interrogation room at Seattle PD, her hands shaking as she signed the plea agreement. 20 years in prison, eligible for parole in 12, in exchange for full cooperation. David watched through the one-way glass as Detective Walsh questioned her. Tell us about the plan, Walsh said. Jessica's voice came out flat, defeated. Claire approached me 3 years ago. She said she'd found the perfect mark. Wealthy widower, 2 young kids, pharmaceutical company. She said it would be easy. Marry him, gain custody, steal the money, disappear. But it wasn't that simple. No, Emma was supposed to be easy to break. But she was stronger than Claire expected. So Claire got angrier, more violent. The abuse escalated. Walsh slid photographs across the table. Emma's x-rays. 7 broken bones. Jessica flinched. I didn't know it was that bad, I swear. I just handled the computer work. The fake identities, the offshore accounts. I didn't think Claire was actually torturing a child. Walsh's voice hardened. What did you think was happening? I thought she was just scaring her, playing bad cop. I didn't know about the bones until I saw the hospital records in the system. You worked at Seattle Children's Hospital under a fake name. You had access to Emma's medical files. You could have reported this at any time. I know, Jessica's voice broke. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But Claire's my sister. She's the only family I have. Our father beat us both when we were kids. Claire learned to survive by being whoever people needed her to be, and I learned to be invisible, to help her from the shadows. Tell us about Plan B. Jessica went even paler. That wasn't supposed to happen. That was Claire's insurance policy. If the custody thing failed, if David fought back, she was going to kill him. Make it look like a heart attack. She'd been researching drugs, dosages, methods. I told her no. Told her we should just take what we could get and run. But Claire, she trailed off. Claire what? Claire enjoys it, the hurting, the control. It's not just about the money anymore. Maybe it never was. She likes watching people suffer, especially children, especially ones who remind her of herself. The words hung in the air like poison. Walsh leaned forward. There's a third case. Chicago, 2006. Thomas Wayne. His daughter died falling downstairs. Was that Claire? Jessica closed her eyes. Yes. She murdered a 6-year-old child? The girl wouldn't stop crying. Claire said she was just going to scare her, threaten her, but she pushed her down the stairs, harder than she meant to. The girl died instantly. Walsh's hands clenched into fists. And Thomas Wayne's suicide? Not suicide, Claire staged it, made it look like guilt. Everyone believed it. The case closed. We moved to San Francisco and started over. David's vision went red. He left the observation room and walked outside into cold Seattle air. Marcus followed. You okay? No, David's voice shook. Claire killed a child. She planned to kill me. She was systematically destroying Emma, and I didn't see it. I was right there in the house and I didn't see it. David, abusers are experts at hiding. They manipulate, they gaslight, they create perfect facades. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I chose work over family. I chose building an empire over being present. I gave Claire every opportunity to hurt my daughters. Marcus gripped his shoulder. Yes, you made mistakes. You were absent, you were blind, but you didn't break Emma's bones. You didn't lock her in basements. You didn't burn her with lighters. Claire did that, and now she's going to pay. Is she? Or will some lawyer find a technicality, some loophole? With Jessica's testimony, with the video, with 3 families of victims willing to testify, Claire's done. She'll die in prison. That's justice, Duashu. David wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the system would work, but he'd seen too many powerful people escape consequences, too many guilty parties walk free. I won't feel safe until she's convicted, David said. Until I know she can never hurt anyone again. Then we make sure of it. Elena's still investigating. We're finding more evidence every day. By the time this goes to trial, the case will be airtight. Elena appeared in the doorway. David, Marcus, you need to see this. They followed her back inside to a conference room. Elena's laptop displayed financial records, emails, and search histories. I've been digging into Claire and Jessica's background. The Chicago case, the San Francisco case, Boston. And I found something, a pattern. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Look at the timing. Every 2 to 3 years, Claire targets a new family. She always picks wealthy widowers. She always picks men with young children, and she always walks away with millions. How many? David asked. At least 5 that I've found so far. Thomas Wayne in Chicago, Robert Thornton in San Francisco, James Mitchell in Boston. 2 others I'm still tracking down, one in Portland, one in Denver. Both cases settled quietly. Both fathers paid her to go away. Marcus stared at the screen. She's a serial predator. Worse, she's escalating. Thomas Wayne's daughter died in 2006. Since then, Claire's gotten more violent with each family, more controlling, testing boundaries, learning what she can get away with. Why? David couldn't comprehend it. Why hurt children? If she just wanted money, there are easier ways. Because she can, Elena said simply, because she enjoys the power, and because traumatized children make unreliable witnesses. If Emma had testified without the video, Claire's lawyer could have painted her as troubled, confused, acting out. But the video proves everything. David thought about Emma pressing that panic button 47 times. 47 times she'd been scared enough, hurt enough, desperate enough to call for help that never came. Until it finally did. What happens next? David asked. Criminal trial starts in 6 weeks, Marcus said. Claire's being held without bail. Jessica's cooperating fully. We have overwhelming evidence. The DA is confident. Confident enough to guarantee a conviction? Marcus hesitated. David, you know I can't guarantee anything. But this case, it's as solid as they come. Claire confessed in open court. We have video evidence, medical evidence, multiple victims, pattern of behavior, Jessica's testimony about the conspiracy and the murder. Claire's going away for life. And Emma, what does she have to do? She'll need to testify at the criminal trial, tell her story again. But this time, there's no question about custody, no threat hanging over her head. She's safe. Safe. The word felt foreign. David had spent 2 years thinking his daughters were safe, thinking Claire was taking care of them, thinking his absence was justified because he was providing security through wealth. He'd been wrong about everything, but he could be right going forward. A father protects, always. He'd failed that duty, but he wouldn't fail again. The criminal trial of Claire Hartley began on a gray October morning. News trucks surrounded the courthouse. Protesters held signs. Child advocacy groups made statements. The case had become a national sensation. Wealthy stepmom's secret life of abuse. Hidden camera exposes years of torture. How many children did Claire Hartley hurt? David ignored the media circus. He held Emma's hand as they entered through a side door. Grace stayed home with the nanny. She was too young to understand court proceedings, too young to be traumatized by reliving the past. But Emma had insisted on testifying. I want to make sure she never hurts anyone else, Emma had said. If I tell the truth, the judge will believe me, and Claire will go to prison forever. The trial moved quickly. ADA Margaret Chen presented the case with clinical precision. Medical experts, FBI analysts, child psychologists. Each witness built the case higher until it became insurmountable. Then came the victim testimony. Brandon Thornton spoke about abuse he'd suffered at age 8. Emily and Madison Mitchell described years of torment. Each story followed the same pattern. Isolation, escalation, psychological manipulation combined with physical violence. But the most powerful testimony came from Emma. She sat in the witness box in her blue dress, the cast finally removed from her leg. 2 months of healing had helped. She no longer flinched at sudden movements. Her nightmares had decreased from every night to once or twice a week. But facing Claire across the courtroom brought everything back. ADHN approached gently. Emma, can you tell the jury what happened on the night of September 17th? Emma's voice started soft but grew stronger as she spoke. She described the ladder, the fall, the pain, and most damning, she described Claire's smile. She smiled when I fell, not a nice smile, a mean smile, like she was happy I got hurt. Why do you think she was happy? Because my daddy wasn't supposed to be home. Claire thought he was in Tokyo. She was going to say he hurt me. Then she could take us away and get the money. What money, Emma? Mommy left money for me and Grace, a trust fund. Claire wanted it. That's why she married Daddy. That's why she pretended to be nice. She wanted our money. Derek Wilson, Claire's attorney, tried aggressive cross-examination. He suggested Emma was lying, that she'd misunderstood, that the video was edited. Emma listened patiently. Then she unbuttoned the top of her dress and showed the jury the scars on her collarbone. Cigarette burns, 7 of them in a neat row. Did the video edit these, she asked. The courtroom fell silent. Derek had no response. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Claire showed no emotion as the verdict was read. She sat perfectly still, her face blank. But David saw her hands clenching under the table, saw the muscle in her jaw working. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Judge Harold Martinez had a reputation for harsh sentences in crimes against children. He didn't disappoint. Claire Hartley, you are a predator who targeted vulnerable families for 15 years. You tortured children. You murdered a 6-year-old girl. You planned multiple murders. You showed no remorse, no humanity, no recognition of the pain you inflicted. It is the sentence of this court that you serve life in prison without possibility of parole for the murder of Sophie Wayne. Additionally, you will serve consecutive life sentences for the attempted murder of Emma Morrison and the conspiracy to murder David Morrison. You will spend every remaining day of your life in prison. That is far less than you deserve. Claire finally reacted. She stood abruptly. Those children deserved everything I did to them. Weak, pathetic, crying all the time. Their mothers were weak too. That's why they died. I should have killed Emma when I had the chance. Should have gotten rid of her and the baby and taken everything. David was stupid enough to hand it all to me. He was never home, never paid attention. I could have done anything. Bailiffs moved to restrain her, but Claire kept talking. Emma will never be whole. I broke her. Every time she closes her eyes, she'll see my face. I'll haunt her nightmares forever. I win. Even from prison, I win. David stood, his voice cut through her ranting. You're wrong. Emma is healing. Every day she gets stronger. Every day the nightmares fade a little more. In 10 years, you'll be a distant memory, a bad chapter in her story, but not the whole story. Emma will go to college. She'll help other survivors. She'll live a full, happy life. And you, David continued, you'll die alone in a cell. No visitors, no letters. No one will remember your name. You'll be nothing, less than nothing. Claire lunged toward him. Bailiffs grabbed her and forced her back into her seat. Judge Martinez pounded his gavel. Mr. Hartley, you are in contempt of court. That's an additional 6 months to be served after your life sentences, which means never. Get her out of my courtroom. As Claire was dragged away, she screamed obscenities, threats, promises of revenge that would never come. David turned away. He didn't watch her go. He watched Emma instead. His daughter sat beside him, holding Grace in her lap. The baby played with Emma's hair, oblivious to the drama. Emma stroked Grace's back with gentle circles. Is it really over? Emma asked. It's really over. Good. Emma's voice held something new. Not quite peace, but the beginning of it. Can we go home now? Home. They'd moved to Montana 3 weeks ago, a ranch in the mountains. Fresh air, open spaces, horses and taws, and room to breathe, room to heal. Yes, David said, we can go home. They left through the same side door they'd entered. News cameras waited outside, but David didn't stop. He carried Grace and held Emma's hand and walked to the car without looking back. Behind them, Claire Hartley disappeared into the prison system. Maximum security, 23 hours a day in her cell, no contact with other inmates, no visitors, No mail except legal correspondence. She would grow old in that cell, die in that cell, be forgotten. But Emma would grow up in Montana sunshine, would learn to ride horses and bake cookies and trust people again, would slowly, painfully, beautifully heal. A father protects, always. David had learned that lesson the hardest way possible, but he would never forget it again. The nightmare came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. Emma woke screaming, tangled in sheets soaked with sweat. Her hands clawed at invisible threats. Her leg, the one Claire had broken, throbbed with phantom pain that the doctors said was psychosomatic but felt terribly real. David was in her room before the second scream finished echoing through the Montana ranch house. He'd learned to sleep lightly, learned to recognize the difference between normal childhood dreams and the specific terror that came from reliving trauma. Emma, baby, look at me. You're safe. I'm here. He didn't touch her yet. Dr. Rebecca Foster, the trauma therapist they saw twice a week, had taught him that. Let Emma orient herself first. Let her recognize where she is and who he is before physical contact. Touch could feel like restraint when you were caught between waking and nightmare. Emma's eyes focused slowly. The bedroom came into view. Pale blue walls, white curtains moving in the mountain breeze, stuffed animals arranged on shelves. No basements, no ladders, no Claire. Daddy? Her voice came out small and young. 9 years old, but sounding like 5. I'm here. She was in my room. She had the lighter. She said she was going to finish what she started. It was a dream. Just a dream. Claire's in prison, 1,500 miles away. She can never hurt you again. Emma's breathing slowed, her hands unclenched. I know, but my brain doesn't always remember when I'm asleep. The honesty broke David's heart. 9 years old and already so aware of her own psychology, so conscious of the difference between logical safety and emotional terror. Grace appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She was 2.5 now, blonde curls wild around her face. She carried her stuffed elephant that she refused to sleep without. Emma okay? Grace asked. Bad dream, Gracie. I'm okay. Grace climbed onto the bed and curled against Emma's side. The gesture was pure instinct. She didn't remember why Emma sometimes woke up screaming. Didn't remember the hospital or the trial or Claire's face. But she remembered that Emma had protected her, that Emma was safe, that Emma's presence meant everything was all right. Emma wrapped an arm around her little sister and met David's eyes over Grace's head. The look said everything. This is why I survived. This is who I protected. This is what matters. David sat on the edge of the bed. Do you want to talk about the dream? Not really. It's always the same anyway. Claire hurting me, you not coming home, me trying to protect Grace but being too small, too weak. You were never weak, Emma. You survived 18 months of abuse. You pressed that panic button 47 times. You testified in court. You're the strongest person I know. Then why do I still have nightmares 3 times a week? Because healing takes time. Dr. Foster says it might take years, maybe forever, but the nightmares will get less frequent, less intense. They won't control you. Emma stroked Grace's hair, her fingers gentle. I hope so. I'm tired of being scared. David wanted to promise her the fear would end, wanted to guarantee that one day she'd sleep through every night, but he'd learned not to make promises he couldn't keep. He'd broken too many promises already. Instead, he said, how about some hot chocolate, the 3 of us? Emma managed a small smile. With extra marshmallows? With as many marshmallows as you want. They went downstairs to the kitchen. The ranch house was smaller than their Seattle mansion had been. Cozier. Wood floors and exposed beams and windows that looked out at mountains instead of skyscrapers. David had sold the pharmaceutical company and most of his assets. Bought this place with cash. Started over. He made hot chocolate while Emma and Grace sat at the kitchen table. Grace chattered about the horses they'd see in the morning. Emma listened but didn't contribute much. The nightmare still clung to her like cobwebs. Daddy, Emma said suddenly, do you think Mommy would be proud of me? The question caught David off guard. Of course she would. Why do you ask? Because I feel weak sometimes. When I have the nightmares. When I can't sleep. When I see someone who looks like Claire and I freeze up. Mommy told me to be brave, but I don't feel brave. David set the mugs down and knelt beside Emma's chair. He took her hands in his. Emma, your mother died when you were 5. But before that, before the cancer, do you know what she told me? Emma shook her head. She said being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you keep going even when you are scared. You face each day even when you want to hide. You tell the truth even when lying would be easier. That's real courage. And Emma, you do that every single day. I do? You do. You go to school even though being around adults makes you nervous. You see Dr. Foster even though talking about Claire hurts. You take care of Grace even though you're still healing yourself. Your mother would be so proud. I'm so proud. Emma's eyes filled with tears, not the helpless tears of a nightmare, the releasing tears of emotion finding its way out. Grace, sensing the mood, hugged Emma's arm. I proud too. Emma laughed through her tears. Thank you, Gracie. They drank hot chocolate and watched the sun rise over the mountains. The first rays of light painted the peaks gold and pink. A new day, a fresh start. Recovery wasn't linear, David had learned. Some days Emma was happy and confident. Other days the trauma swallowed her whole. But each hard day was followed by easier ones. Each setback eventually gave way to progress. Healing happened slowly, painfully, but it happened. The Rebecca Foster's office smelled like lavender and looked like someone's cozy living room. Soft chairs, warm lighting, shelves full of books and fidget toys. Nothing clinical or cold. Emma sat in her favorite chair, the purple one with extra cushions. She'd been coming here twice a week for a year. At first, she'd barely spoken, just sat and colored while Dr. Foster asked gentle questions. Now, at 9 years old, Emma could talk about the abuse. Not easily, not without pain, but she could talk. Tell me about the nightmares this week, Dr. Foster said. She was 42 with kind eyes and gray-streaked brown hair. She specialized in childhood trauma, had worked with abuse survivors for 20 years. 3 times, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. That's down from 5 times last month, I guess. That's real progress, Emma. What happens in the nightmares? Emma picked at a loose thread on the chair cushion. Claire's there, she's hurting me, and I try to call for Daddy, but no sound comes out. Or sometimes sound comes out, but he can't hear me. He's in another country, too far away. What do you think that means? I don't know, you're the therapist. Dr. Foster smiled. I could tell you what I think, but you're smart enough to figure it out yourself. Emma considered. I guess it means I'm still scared Daddy will leave again, that he'll go back to working all the time, that I'll be alone. Is that a realistic fear? Has your father given you any reason to think he'll leave? No, he's here every day. He works from his office at home. He drives me to school and picks me up. He makes dinner. He reads to Grace and me at night. So logically, you know he's staying. But emotionally, I'm still scared. That's very insightful, Emma, and that's normal. Trust is hard to rebuild after it's been broken. Even when someone is doing everything right, the fear lingers. But over time, as your father proves himself consistently present, that fear will fade. Emma looked up. Will I ever stop being scared? Her Foster didn't lie to her. Never had. Emma appreciated that. The acute fear will fade. The nightmares will become less frequent. But you might always have some anxiety, some hypervigilance. That's how trauma works. It changes your brain's threat detection system. But you'll learn to manage it, to recognize when the fear is based on past danger versus present reality. How long will that take? Everyone heals at different rates. Some survivors feel significantly better after a year or 2. Others take 5 or 10 years. There's no right timeline. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been bothering her for months. Dr. Foster, do you think I should forgive Claire? Why do you ask? Because my teacher said forgiveness is important, that holding grudges makes you bitter, but I don't want to forgive Claire. I want her to stay in prison forever. Dr. Foster leaned forward. Her expression was serious, focused. Emma, I'm going to tell you something I want you to remember. Forgiveness is not required for healing. You don't owe Claire anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding, not compassion. What she did to you was evil, unforgivable, and you're allowed to feel angry about it for the rest of your life. Really? Really? Some trauma therapists push forgiveness. I don't. I think forcing victims to forgive their abusers adds another layer of harm. Your feelings are valid. All of them. Anger, hatred, fear, all valid. Emma felt something loosen in her chest. Permission to hate. Permission to be angry. She hadn't realized she needed that permission until Dr. Foster gave it. There's someone else I want to talk about, though, Dr. Foster continued. Someone who might need your forgiveness. Who? Yourself. Emma frowned. What do I need to forgive myself for? You told me once that you felt guilty, that you should have told someone sooner, should have been braver, should have protected Grace better. Do you remember saying that? Emma nodded slowly. That's misplaced guilt, Emma. You were 8 years old. You did everything you could with the tools and understanding you had. You pressed that panic button. You kept your sister alive. You survived. You have nothing to feel guilty about. But if I'd told Daddy sooner, he might not have believed you. Claire was very good at manipulation. She'd spent months building a narrative that you were troubled, dramatic, acting out. If you'd told your father, Claire would have convinced him you were lying, and then the abuse would have gotten worse. Emma hadn't thought of it that way. You survived the only way you could, Dr. Foster said gently. And now you need to forgive yourself for being human, for being a child in an impossible situation. Can you do that? Emma wasn't sure, but she could try. I'll work on it, she said. That's all I ask. At 13, Emma Morrison stood in front of 300 students at a school assembly. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice remained steady. My name is Emma. When I was 8 years old, my stepmother abused me for 18 months. She broke 7 of my bones. She burned me. She locked me in a basement. She told me I was worthless, that my dead mother was ashamed of me, that no one would believe me if I told. The auditorium was silent. Even the usual troublemakers who disrupted assemblies sat quietly. But she was wrong. People did believe me. The police, the doctors, the judge, and most importantly, my father. When I finally told him what was happening, he believed me. He protected me. He made sure my stepmother went to prison for the rest of her life. Emma held up a book. Her book. Published under a pseudonym 6 months ago, but revealed as hers last week. I wrote this book called Brave Girl to help other kids who are being hurt, to show them they can survive, they can heal, and they can speak up. She opened to a marked page and read, You are not what happened to you. You are not the abuse. You are not the trauma. You are the survivor. You are the fighter. You are the brave one who kept going when it would have been easier to give up. You matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters. She closed the book. If you're being hurt right now, tell someone. Keep telling until someone listens. Press charges. Fight back. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be loved. And you deserve justice, Bob. The applause started slowly, then built until it filled the auditorium. Emma's English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, wiped tears from her eyes. After the assembly, a girl approached Emma. 7th grader, thin, nervous. That was really brave, the girl said. Your speech, I mean. Thank you. Can I ask you something? The girl looked around to make sure no one was listening. Does it get easier than nightmares and stuff? Emma studied the girl's face, saw the shadows under her eyes, the way she held her left arm carefully, the too casual way she asked the question. Are you okay? Emma asked quietly. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. Is someone hurting you? A small nod. Come with me. Emma took the girl's hand and led her to the school counselor's office. She stayed while the girl told her story, stayed while the counselor called CPS, stayed until the girl's aunt arrived to take her somewhere safe. That night, David found Emma in her room staring at her laptop. She'd pulled up news articles about Claire's trial, something she rarely did anymore. You okay, sweetheart? A girl at school told me today that her stepfather was hitting her. I helped her tell the counselor. They called CPS. She's staying with her aunt now. That was very brave of you. It felt good, helping her, making sure she doesn't have to suffer as long as I did. David sat on the edge of her bed. Is that why you wrote the book? To help other kids? Partly, but also to help me. Dr. Foster said writing about trauma can help process it. Turn it from something that happened to me into a story I control. Has it helped? Emma considered. Yeah, I think it has. When I wrote about the basement, I could decide how the scene ended. I could add in the part where future me tells past me that I survive, that I get out, that I'm okay. You are okay, more than okay. You're extraordinary. Emma smiled. At 13, she was starting to believe him, starting to see herself as something other than a victim. She still had nightmares once or twice a week, still flinched at sudden loud noises, still felt her chest tighten when she saw blonde women who looked like Claire. But she also had friends, straight A grades, a book helping other survivors, a little sister who adored her, a father who showed up every single day. The trauma would always be part of her story, but it wasn't the whole story anymore. Grace Morrison was 7 years old when she finally asked the question, Emma, why do you go to therapy? They sat in Emma's room. Emma was 15 now, homework spread across her desk. Grace was supposed to be doing her own homework, but had gotten distracted. Emma set down her pencil. She'd known this conversation would come eventually. Grace was old enough now to wonder, old enough to understand at least some of it. When you were a baby, something bad happened. Dad was married to someone named Claire. She seemed nice, but she wasn't. She hurt me. A lot. Grace's eyes widened. Like hitting? Yes, and other things. She broke my bones, burned me, locked me in dark places. That's mean. Very mean. Did she hurt me too? Emma hesitated. How much should she say? Grace had no memory of those first 18 months. Didn't remember being left in her crib for hours. Didn't remember the hunger, the neglect. But she deserved the truth. She didn't feed you enough. She left you alone a lot. But you were too little to remember. Grace processed this. Where is she now? Prison. Forever. She can never hurt anyone again. Good. Grace's voice was fierce, protective. I'm glad Emma told on her. Me too. Grace climbed onto Emma's bed and hugged her. You're the best big sister. You protected me when I was a baby. Emma's throat tightened. That's what big sisters do. Did it hurt when she was mean to you? Yes, a lot. I'm sorry that happened. Such simple words from a 7-year-old, but they meant everything. Thank you, Grace. Emma, can I ask you something else? Of course. Do you think Mommy Sarah would be proud of us? Emma looked at the framed photo on her nightstand. Sarah Morrison, beautiful and smiling, holding baby Emma. The photo had been taken a year before cancer, before everything changed. I think Mom would be very proud of both of us, even though I never met her, especially because of that. Mom loved you before you were born. She knew about you. Dad told me once that when they found out another baby was coming, Mom was so happy. She made Dad promise to take care of both of us. Did he keep his promise? Emma thought about David, about the transformation from absent CEO to present father, about the bedtime stories and the therapy appointments and the patient answering of the same questions over and over. He did. He's keeping it right now. Grace smiled, then her expression turned serious. Emma, I have another question. A big one. Okay. Are you going to leave when you go to college? Are you going to leave me? So that's what this was really about. Grace had heard Emma and David discussing college applications. Stanford, Columbia, Harvard, all far away. I'm going to college, yes, but Grace, I'm not leaving you. I'll come home for holidays. We'll video chat every week, and you can visit me. College isn't forever. It's just 4 years. 4 years is a long time. I know, but you'll be okay. You have Dad, and you'll make friends at school. And before you know it, you'll be going to college too. Grace didn't look convinced. Emma understood. Grace had spent her entire remembered life with Emma as her protector, her guardian, the one constant. Grace, listen to me. I protected you when you were a baby because you needed protection. But you don't need that anymore. You're safe now. Dad keeps us safe. And even when I'm at college, I'm still your sister. That never changes. Promise, Grace? I promise, sisters forever. Grace hugged her again, tighter this time. That evening, David found both girls in the living room. Grace was showing Emma a drawing she'd made. 2 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. Labels read Emma and Grace, best sisters. "What's this?" David asked. "Grace and I had a talk about Claire," Emma said, "about what happened. She handled it really well." David looked at Grace. "Do you have any questions for me?" Grace shook her head. "Emma told me everything. She said Claire was mean, but you caught her and now she's in prison forever." "That's right." "Good. Can we have ice cream?" The emotional whiplash of children, 1 minute processing trauma, the next asking for dessert. "Sure," David said. "Ice cream for everyone." As they ate, David watched his daughters. Emma, 15, poised on the edge of adulthood. Grace, 7, still young enough to think ice cream solved everything. They'd both survived Claire. But more than that, they'd thrived. Emma was headed to Stanford next year on a full academic scholarship. She planned to study psychology, to become a trauma therapist, to help other survivors heal. Grace was a straight-A student who loved art and animals and had never known what it meant to be afraid in her own home. They were going to be okay. They already were okay. The Stanford graduation ceremony took place on a perfect California day. Blue sky, gentle breeze, thousands of students in caps and gowns filling the quad. Emma Morrison sat among them waiting for her name to be called. She was 18 now, no longer the frightened 8-year-old who'd pressed a panic button 47 times. No longer even the determined 13-year-old who'd written a book to help other survivors. She was Emma Morrison, college graduate, psychology major, survivor turned advocate. Her name echoed across the loudspeaker. Emma Rose Morrison, Bachelor of Science in Psychology, summa cum laude. She walked across the stage, shook hands with the dean, accepted her diploma. In the audience, David stood and cheered. Grace, now 12, whistled loudly. Emma's boyfriend, Michael, a childhood friend from Montana, hollered her name. But Emma's eyes found someone else in the crowd, Dr. Rebecca Foster, the trauma therapist who guided her through 10 years of healing. Dr. Foster smiled and gave a small nod. "You made it." That's what the nod said. "You survived and you thrived." After the ceremony, Emma's group gathered for photos. David hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. "Your mother would be so proud," he whispered. "I know. I'm so proud." "I know that too." Grace launched herself at Emma next. "You did it! You're a real adult now." "Not sure about that, but I have a degree." Michael kissed her cheek. "Congratulations, Dr. Morrison in training." Emma laughed. "That's 5 more years away. Let me enjoy this first." They went to dinner at a nice restaurant. David ordered champagne even though Emma was still technically underage. One glass wouldn't hurt for a special occasion. "Speech," Grace demanded. Emma stood, glass in hand. 10 years ago, I was 8 years old and broken. I just testified against the woman who tried to destroy me. I thought I'd never be normal again. Never be happy. Never feel safe. She looked around the table at the people who'd helped her heal. But I was wrong. With therapy and time and so much support, I healed. Not completely. I still have nightmares sometimes. I still flinch at certain things. The trauma will always be part of me. She raised her glass. But it's not all of me. I'm also a college graduate, a published author, a survivor advocate, a big sister, a daughter, a girlfriend, and next year I'll be a graduate student at Columbia studying to be a trauma therapist. Because if I can help even one person heal the way I was helped to heal, then everything I went through will have meaning. "To Emma," David said, raising his own glass. "To Emma," everyone echoed. Later, after dinner, Emma and David took a walk around the Stanford campus. Just the two of them. "Are you happy?" David asked. Emma considered. "Yes, genuinely happy. That's not something I ever thought I'd be able to say." "What changed?" "Time, therapy, you showing up every single day, Grace needing me, Michael loving me despite all my baggage, helping other survivors and seeing them heal too." They stopped beneath a tree, watching students celebrate on the lawn. "I need to tell you something," David said. "Something I should have said years ago." "What?" "I'm sorry for not being there, for not seeing what Claire was doing, for almost losing you." "Dad, we've been over this. You're forgiven. You've more than made up for it." "I know, but I needed to say it again. Emma, you saved yourself. You pressed that button. You testified. You survived. I was just the backup. You were more than backup. You believed me. You fought for me. You changed your entire life to be present. That matters. David pulled her into a hug. I love you, Emma, more than I can express. I love you too, Dad. As they walked back to the car, Emma's phone buzzed, saw an email from a stranger. Subject line, thank you for brave girl. She opened it. Dear Emma, I'm 15. My mom's boyfriend was hitting me. I read your book, and it gave me courage to tell my school counselor. They called CPS. I'm safe now, living with my grandmother, starting therapy next week. I just wanted to say thank you. You saved my life. Sarah, Emma showed David the email. That's the 5th one this week, she said. People reaching out to say the book helped them. How does that feel? It feels like everything I went through wasn't meaningless, like I can take the worst thing that ever happened to me and turn it into something that helps other people. That's incredibly powerful. I learned from the best. Emma smiled. You took your failure as a father and turned it into a commitment to never fail again. You taught me that redemption is possible, that people can change. You give me too much credit. No, I give you exactly the right amount. They drove back to their hotel. Tomorrow they'd fly back to Montana for a few weeks before Emma moved to New York for graduate school. Grace was already asleep when they returned. David went to his room. Emma sat on the hotel balcony, looking out at the city lights. She thought about 8-year-old Emma, broken and terrified. She thought about that little girl pressing the panic button, hoping someone would hear her. Someone had heard. And now Emma would spend her life making sure other voices were heard too. She touched the watch on her wrist. Sarah's watch, the one that had saved her life. She wore it every day now, not because she needed the panic button anymore, but because it reminded her that she was her mother's brave girl, and she always would be. They visited Sarah's grave on the anniversary of her death. It had become an annual tradition, the three of them together bringing flowers and stories. The cemetery sat on a hillside overlooking Seattle. Sarah had chosen the plot herself before she died. Said she wanted to see the city lights at night. Emma placed white roses on the headstone. Grace added pink carnations. David stood behind them, his hands on their shoulders. Hi, Mom, Emma said. It's me. I'm 18 now. Graduated from college, going to Columbia for my master's in clinical psychology. I'm going to be a trauma therapist. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I want you to know something. For a long time, I was angry at you for dying, for leaving me with Dad when he wasn't ready to be a single parent, for not being there to protect me from Claire. Grace took Emma's hand. But I'm not angry anymore, Emma continued, because you did protect me. The watch you gave Dad saved my life. It recorded everything, gave the police proof, put Claire in prison. You were protecting me even after you were gone. Her voice cracked. Claire tried to make me believe you were ashamed of me, that you died to get away from me. But I know the truth now. You loved me. You fought to stay as long as you could, and you made sure I had the tools to save myself. She touched the watch on her wrist. I wear this every day. When I touch it, I remember I'm your brave girl, and I always will be. Grace stepped forward. Hi, Mom. I never met you, but Emma tells me about you all the time. She says you would have loved me. I think I would have loved you too. She placed her hand on the headstone. Thank you for Emma. She's the best sister. She protected me when I was little, and even though she's going to New York for school, she says we'll still talk all the time. Sisters forever. David spoke last. Sarah, I kept my promise. Our girls are safe, happy, thriving. Emma's going to help other survivors heal. Grace wants to be a pediatric nurse. They're both extraordinary. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm sorry it took almost losing them for me to understand what you were trying to tell me. That being present matters more than being successful. That a father's job is to protect. Always. He placed his hand over Emma's on the headstone. But I understand now, and I'll keep that promise every day for the rest of my life. They stood together in silence, father and daughters, survivors and protectors, a family rebuilt from ashes. Finally, Emma stepped back. Ready to go? David nodded. Grace took his hand. As they walked toward the car, Emma looked back once at her mother's grave. The inscription read, Sarah Morrison, beloved wife and mother, be brave, my girls. We are, Mom, Emma whispered. We are. 10 years after Claire's conviction, Emma Morrison, age 18, began her journey to New York and graduate school. Grace Morrison, age 12, started middle school with straight A's and dreams of medical school. David Morrison, age 50, worked from home and never missed a family dinner. Claire Hartley remained in Oregon State Penitentiary, maximum security. Life without parole. No visitors, no letters. Forgotten. Jessica Hartley served year 10 of 20, eligible for parole in 2 years. Had written apology letters to all the victims. Emma hadn't decided whether to forgive her yet. Brandon Thornton, age 27, practiced criminal defense law, specializing in abuse victims. Emily and Madison Mitchell, ages 29 and 27, both worked in child advocacy. Robert Thornton and James Mitchell remained in touch with David, united by shared experience, united by the knowledge that they'd all failed once but refused to fail again. Emma's book, Brave Girl, had sold 200,000 copies, helped countless children find their voices. The nightmares came once a month now instead of once a week. Emma could handle that. She was happy, genuinely, truly happy. The trauma would always be part of her story, but it wasn't the ending. It was just a chapter. A dark chapter, yes, a painful chapter, but followed by chapters of healing, of growth, of hope. Emma Morrison had been broken, and she had survived, and she had thrived, because healing is possible. Justice can be served, and love, real and present and protective love, can overcome even the darkest evil. A father protects, always.